Hello YouTube, Goddard Radio Moscow here again with another beer review for you as is usual. For this one we're going to continue on with the Scottish series of beer reviews that I've been doing for you, the Scottish Beer Month. So this is video number 11 in that series, and for this one we're going to return to my home county. Of course there's two breweries here, Williams Brothers, and then there's these guys here, Harviestoun Brewery, the original Clackmannanshire brewery. They've spent all of their lifetime here, and this is one of their new beers called Broken Dial, which is an amber ale, and I tried it on cask and it's absolutely beautiful, this one. So I'm really interested to see how the kind of bottled version matches up to that. The cask one was really one of the best beers I've tried on cask actually, so very interested to see what this beer's like. So as is usual then with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a brief history of the brewery. If you don't want to stick with me for that, just fast forward a few minutes into the video and you will get straight to the tasting. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with a link to my other Harviestoun beer reviews, so check those out if you are interested, and hopefully in the future there will be more Harviestoun beer reviews for you to come. I've done quite a few of them now, so I can't say exactly when I'll get back to them, but hopefully there's new beers to come from them soon. But anyway, Harviestoun is one of the oldest craft breweries in Scotland. They're located fairly near to Stirling, sort of the centre point of Scotland, in between Edinburgh and Glasgow. So if you're travelling to Scotland, visit Stirling, very historical town actually. But the brewery was founded back in 1983 by Ken Brooker, who used to homebrew, and he would actually invite people round to his house to taste his beers and give them notes on how he was doing with his brewing. But a few years later he decided that he wanted to brew for a living, and thus he converted an old steading in Dollar into a small brewery in 1986, and a lot of the equipment that he used in the early days was built himself from salvage and things like that, old dairy farms and all of this kind of thing. But over the following few years they gradually added more beers to their repertoire, and after Ken decided to invest in the brewery in 1989, they installed a hell of a lot of new professional equipment for the first time, so there was a real infrastructure and development in the brewery in the early 1990s. And in 1994 they actually introduced the famous Schiehallion lager beer, which in my opinion is one of the best Scottish craft beers that you'll come across, and this beer made a huge name for itself. It's probably one of the most widely exported Scottish craft beers these days, and I highly recommend that you check it out. It's a very good flagship beer for Scottish craft brewing in my opinion. In my opinion that's the best beer that you will get out of the Harviestoun Brewery. But the big break for the brewery was back in 1996 when they won the Tesco Beer Challenge, and this resulted in the first bulk order for the brewery, and soon after this they launched their now flagship beer, Bitter and Twisted, and they began their exports to the USA, and you will find their beers quite widely over there, I'm told. But since the turn of the millennium the brewery has become even more decorated, and they introduced the Old Engine Oil Porter, which is a very popular export beer as well, and this has since been barrel aged to create the Ola Duv series, which is apparently very nice. I've not tried those ones yet, so I hope to review those for you in the future. But in 2003 they moved to their new facility in Alva, a few miles away from Dollar, and the brewery was actually sold to the Caledonian Brewery from Edinburgh back in 2006, which was bought in turn by the large Heineken Group, although strangely enough they didn't actually want Harviestoun Brewery, and so it was bought out by the current set of owners, and maybe that was a very good thing for the brewery because they're producing some really awesome ales, and if they were part of a big kind of corporation, if you like, I guess their independence and doing what they wanted to do, they'd be very restricted in doing that. The big corporation would essentially force them to brew for volume rather than producing some very good ales, which they certainly do. So recently they've actually introduced two new beers, and this is called the Ridge, which was a sort of American transatlantic pale ale, they marketed it, and this guy, the Broken Dial, which as I said to you is a very beautiful amber beer. To list the other beers you can get from this brewery, obviously you get the Schiehallion, which is a really nice kind of hoppy lager, a sort of grapefruit flavour you get from that one, beautiful beer in my opinion. You get the Bitter and Twisted, which is quite an interesting one, that's their flagship beer. Old Engine Oil Porter, which is probably one of the best porters you'll come across in my opinion. Engineer's Reserve, which is a special version of Old Engine Oil. You get the Wild Hop, which was a special summer one that they sometimes release. It comes out every few years. And you also get the Ola Duv series, which is number 12, 18 and 16 as well. So a very special range of beers, definitely worth checking out if you do get the chance. But let's get on to the tasting of this guy here. As I said, very excited to try this one and see how I get on with the bottled version of this. Very recently, I should point out, Harviestoun actually changed the labels that go onto their beers. They did have they had quite a similar design, I should say, but they've modernised it quite nicely now, and I do like these new labels that they've introduced to the beer. You can see that's Harvey the Mouse that's on the bottle here, and I think he used to run around the old steading they had in Dollar, and that's where the name Harviestoun came from. Actually, they named this little mouse Harvey, who used to run around on the floor there. You can see him on the top label as well, and he's also on the bottle cap of this beer. On the back it has a little description about Broken Dial. It says, this gloriously amber coloured ale is one of our brewer's timeless classics. Made with what is often considered to be the finest hop on earth, namely the Simcoe hop, the result is a fruity finish with a distinctly malty undertone. Take a sip and whilst time stands still, discover this thirst quenching and palate enlivening ale. So this is, as I say, a very, very good one, and that description actually fits it very well. So let's get it open and get on with the tasting here. This is a beer I really, really like, so excited for this one. As you can see, a nice smoky opening there, as we always seem to get with these beers when they're chilled a little bit. Try and get a little bit more of a head on this guy. We've got that just quite nicely there, actually, I would say. Just put the light down, it seems to be reflecting off the bottle a little bit. But as you can see, it's poured very, very nicely. I'll just tell you a bit about the hop profile on this one while we're looking at the colour. It's hopped with Celelia, Citra and Simcoe, and also Liberty hops, and it has a malt backbone of lager malts, wheat malts, oats, and also some chocolate wheat as well. So it's a very, very interesting malt base on this one, and it's 4.5% on the Richter scale. So you have a nice, just about a 3/4 finger of a frothy white head on there, maybe a cream coloured head actually, maybe not quite white, but as you can see it's completely transparent. If I put my fingers behind this beer, very, very beautiful looking beer. I think I would describe this as a kind of coppery amber colour actually. Not quite as red as some copper ones would be, but it's a very kind of deep orangey amber. I'll bring up the light and just let you have a little closer look at the colour of this one, see if you agree with me, but it's a very kind of nice coppery amberish colour, this one. The head's just going down slightly. There's a good little bit of carbonation visible on this one, just going up towards the bottom of the head. Very attractive looking beer though. And I'm sure the one I had on tap actually was quite hazy. I'm not sure about that, but I'm sure I can test that out when I go back to the pub sometime. But let's give this guy a smell and see how we get on. So, first impressions of the aroma is, as you would guess, very, very kind of hoppy with the hops that are in it. A very sort of fruity hop character that comes out of this one. You've got some nice kind of mandarins and sharp mandarins, but a little bit of the more kind of underlying sweeter oranges in there. There is an element of tropical fruit kind of sourness to it as well, and a little bit of kind of, maybe just a little faint hint of pine raisin. The tropical fruit and the pine raisin is quite subdued in favour of the more citric kind of hoppy aromas in this one. Definitely oranges and tangerines are the main things coming out. But as the kind of bottle was saying, you can pick out the nice malty undertone of this one. There's a really nice rich caramel flavour in there, and some nice bready malts too. There's maybe a little bit of a kind of rye to this one as well actually. It does smell as if there's a little bit of a rye kind of spice in the background of this one. But very, very interesting. It's a really nice smelling beer, this one. Quite a hoppy amber ale, which in my experience is a little unusual for the style. But let's give it a taste and see how we get on. So this is the Broken Dial beer from Harviestoun, and I hope they make this one a regular, because I've tried this before and it's beautiful beer. So let's get stuck into this guy. Yeah. On first impression, it comes off as quite a hoppy beer. A little bit more hoppy than it was on tap, if I remember rightly. The malt came out a little bit more, but I'm sure the malt will come out a wee bit more after that first taste. Yeah, malt, on the first taste you get a bit of a blast of the hops, so you've got quite a nice kind of dry, kind of bittery character that's coming out with a little bit of that grapefruit in there. Quite a bit of the grapefruit coming out, and just the more juicy oranges kind of coming towards the front of the tongue there. Yeah, the malt character kind of comes out a little bit more, but the hop character kind of fuses quite well with it. It fuses a little bit more than in the cask version. The cask version is a lot more bready than this, I think. And the bread is more sort of bready, and caramel malt's a little bit more subdued in this than it is in the cask version. But it's a very, very nice beer. It's almost like two different beers actually. and both of them, I will point out, both of them are very, very good within their own right. As I say, this is a little bit more hoppy than the cask version, but it's still a beautiful, beautiful beer. So, I'm actually saying that the malt is coming out a little bit more, but it feels a little crisper, it feels a little less thick, this one, which is normal than in a bottle than in a cask ale. So with the taste with this one, you're getting the nice kind of lighter bready malts coming out. They're sitting just on the back of the tongue there. As I say, a lot lighter than it is on the cask actually, I think. But you've got a little bit of toasted character to that as well, and the caramel is kind of mixing in quite well with that. You can pick out the darkness to the malt base as well. With it having kind of chocolate malt in it, you expect that. And the malt base of this beer definitely has to have that darker element that you would associate with the chocolate malt, but it's not a very sweet one. It's definitely a sort of darker, and probably contributes to the kind of slightly toasted, roasty feel that you get from this beer. But it has a little bit of a nutty flavour to it as well, but that's quite mild. That's just a sort of kind of complexing flavour, if you like. It's not all that prominent. I think it does have a little bit of nutty character to it. Mainly the malt base is a big bready, caramelly flavour, a little bit of kind of spice in there too that complements the toasted character that it has, and some caramel. Very interesting malt base on this one, but on top of that you've got the sort of orangey, citricy hops coming out. The grapefruit is quite a bit more prominent than it is in the aroma. The grapefruit pushes the sort of orangey citrus flavours back a little bit, and it sits there at the back of the tongue and lingers quite well into the aftertaste on top of that big bready malt base. But yeah, it's a really, really beautiful beer, this one. Very interesting just to see the two different versions of it actually. But it opens up with that nice fruity and piney character coming out of the hops, then it goes down to that nice, really quite complex malt base, the bread, the caramel, the kind of spice to it, and a little bit of the chocolate darkness in there. And the hops come out again, and this is when you get the kind of the almost slightly earthy character coming out, and also with a little bit of the grapefruit flavour that just sits in the middle of the tongue, and you've got the kind of piney resins that give you this fresh feel around the edge there, and the kind of orangey sweetness that's in this one, I think, is coming out a little bit more towards the front of the tongue. It's a very, very nice one, and you just get this blanket across the tongue as well of the kind of sort of bready, nice complex malts in there. It blends together very well, this one. As I say, this is a little bit more hoppy than the cask version, but still very, very beautiful beer. In terms of the mouthfeel, this one is quite light-bodied. As I say, I keep talking about the cask. The cask is more of a mid-bodied beer. It's quite a bit fuller than this one, but it's certainly, this one for being light-bodied, it certainly doesn't lack in flavour, and that's the most important thing. It's got quite a soft carbonation, this one, and it has a nice, as I say, it's got a nice kind of juicy, fruity character to it that comes out quite well. It almost gives it a bit of a slightly oily character, but it's more, you'll see that, it's more of a wet oil, it's more of a juicy feel, but it's quite refreshing. And it really does have a nice lingering bitter character to it, which for a lot of the people that are hop heads and craft beer lovers, you will really like it. So overall, I would say this is a very interesting take on the amber ale style. It's almost a style that's overlooked a little bit actually, and I can't think of having another craft Scottish amber ale that's quite as good as this one. This is maybe one that will actually become I hope this becomes a regular beer from Harviestoun, because they've done an excellent job with it, and with a lot of breweries they will produce kind of beers like this and then sadly they just disappear, but I really hope Harviestoun will listen to that comment and say this is one that we really, really like, because I think it has proved to be very, very popular. So my fingers crossed that this becomes a regular beer and it becomes more widely available on cask, and even in the bottle it is a very, very beautiful one. So that would be my assessment of the the broken dial ale. If you do get the chance, I would highly recommend that you try it. Quite an unusual style, and it's not one that you find commonly done so well in Scotland in my experience, but there's a lot of breweries popping up, so that might change in the future. But again, Harviestoun have produced a really excellent ale that I recommend you try, and anything you'll try from Harviestoun, I'm sure you won't be disappointed. So I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Please let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this one. Try this beer if you want a kind of really interesting take on the amber ale style. A nice hoppy one this. Very, very interesting blend of flavours. But please let me know in the comment section, as I say, your thoughts on this beer if you've tried it. And please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you're enjoying this series of Scottish beer reviews, and I will catch you again soon with another one. Cheers.